and everything that's located here, all the activities, all the organizations, the groups, la the navel kehit kuchugo ache adokonts sa annekin gitzil doko sleje biege dit eko kehanit eko di bedan gitzila kuche akot eko ado kehek nakaiso kaido 20 Arrows Casino is located in Loop. What echo? So welcome to Loop, Arizona. Yeah, thank you, Chairman.
Honorable Daniels.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Untitled Vice Chair, honorable members of Resources and Development Committee. Yeah, kudo Herman Daniels Jr. I don't know Slenigi, but Annie Kilachini Dashe. Skat so Dashanale. Toyhead Lenny, not Hayden, I should say. What I could a Kenkidini to let out this morning. I don't know, could sit Celia could Delegate Freeland could not have certain. I said, I hear Linkodo, I hear Nsodo. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Daniels. Honorable Freeland.
Chairman, good morning. Staff from DNR, good morning. To Parks and Rec and the museum team, as well as all those on the call. Shijay Mark Freeland this year. I don't Tutsoni, Snowdok Kia, Ani, Asia. I don't send you Canada Shache, I don't send a Bentley additional. It's East Osikai, Sinasha, and I'm from the other side of, I almost said the other side of the world, the other side of the nation. And it's always good to be back in Western Agency. Ado chapter zigi, I represent Crown Point though Nahadishki show I Vicente, White Rock, Lake Valley, Herfano, and Nyaza. Good morning to all of our chapters out there as well. Also the representative for Eastern Agency on this on the RDC. So thank you, Shanata. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Freeland. Honorable Keolan Begay.
Chairman, good morning. Shnda, Brother Do, Mr. Freeland, as Che, don't want to Che. Other brother Judge Low. Staff from Senior Kudo, Kage, Sli Kagi, Kudo Stage, Hanarani dance long key only eight as a appet and it as a Che. Ado this cheat ni eight as a nale. Coco Slahandatle, Patratashaki, a Loma on Tachibu Gap, Salonika, and with Noslini and many farms that I could also manage instant. So without it, that's a state of the Chairman.
Thank you, Honorable Begay. Honorable Stewart.
Good morning, Shania, Chairman, Asha Vice Chair, Shania, Staff, Shado, Ms. Khan, Madeline the corner, at 20 Arrows this morning. Roshana thought, yeah, for the prayer this morning to start our meeting on this wonderful day the Lord has created. So thank you, Nana. Koshaya Wilson C. Stewart Jr. A and Sheto Aquadota told that this morning and probably from today to Wednesday. Aro a Quetzoni A and Schlendon on Kachini, Bashis Chin, Kachini, Dasha Chedo, Bimitwine Dashanella, Aro, but Hadashagi A at South Sobek El Cheat, once the Doni Hichid, the other 45 agency representation for the Resource Development Committee of 24th Nomination Council, and then Shania Chairman, Vice Chair, and colleagues, I'll be on LOC call today too. I have a legislation on that side, but I'll be on this one mainly. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We'll share you how could all recognize in she how son and shla or zed kachin, but she's chain, son of it in the shadow, kia ani the chanel hot oid, and then slido, her strong chapters, banash, nashige, yaha. Hogback, San Juan, and Hanizar, Upper Fruitland, Burnham, and Newcomb. Welcome, everybody. We also have an honorary member of RDC with us today, Honorable Paul Begay.
Thank you, Chair, my brother, Honorable Delegate Rick Nez, Auto Vice Chair Chinala, Mr. Walker, Auto members of the RDC, Delegate Paul Begay from northwest corner of the nation. I represent the Chi Copper Mine, Kaibitu, Tonalia, and Badaway Gap. So this gives you the name. Auto Bipitonia, Bashin. Thank you for including me in the meeting. Let's have a good day. Thank you. And thank you for the prayer, my brother. Makes a good start for our day. Yeah.
Thank you, Honorable Begay. Let's go to staff. Mr. Tahi.
Chair, members of RDC, my name is Rodney Tahi. I'm the Legislative Advisor for Resource and Development Committee. I'm Kiani and Senjakine. And I wanted to say thank you for that prayer this morning, Mark. It's a great way to start the day. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you. Our recorder on the call, Ms. Springer.
Good morning, RDC Committee. This is Heather Springer. I'm a Legislative Assistant with the Office of Legislative Services. I'm Senator Bithany in Omaha. Everybody have a good day.
Thank you. Ms. Khan.
Yad Benishik Yad Resources and Development Committee members, Donald Finigi Ado, Yad Besh Bandasa Anegi, Mr. Paul Begay, and others who are there. Ahead, Delegate Mark Freeland, Ahead Shiaj, Najonagon Hasodinson, Ba Ahe Elle, She Mariana Khan, the Shijin. Done and the Shinigi a to here gleaning the Shlep at the Bashish change, Ashche Dashit Chase, Senji Kenneth Dashanella. Very happy to be on the call with you this morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, and all who are listening and will be presenting. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Back to you.
Thank you, Ms. Khan. From Speaker's Office, Ms. Siako.
Hello, Yad and good morning, Chairman and members of the Resources and Development Committee. Sheya Melinda Arviso Siako Yenshia. Tsena Janine Shlon Kia Ani Bashichin Twitchini Dashichedo Dashini Dashanale, Legislative Staff Assistant for the Office of the Speaker in Windrock, Arizona. And thank you for having us on the call. Ado Yad Ehebene.
Thank you, Ms. Siako. Let's go to staff here from the Navajo Nation Museum.
A Bashichin, Tuhidlini A Dashiche, Kia Ani A Dashanella, my Tatlish A Yasa Nasha. I live in Winter Rock and work there at the Navajo Nation Museum. Thank you for this opportunity to hear our reasons, and we will get into that at some point, but I'd like to introduce the accountant for the museum who's here to assist me, Ms. Shundeen Jeff.
Good morning, members of the Resource and Development Committee, and to Delegate Begay. Thank you for this opportunity to meet with us and to hear our legislation. I am the accountant for the Navajo Nation Museum, and I'm here to support the museum director and the Parks and Recreation Department manager with the financial and administrative components of our organization. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you. We also have here with us today Parks and Rec, Mr. Martin Begay and staff.
Oh, yeah. Good morning.
Martin Begay, in Seattle, Department Director for Parks and Recreation. And I've been in this capacity for 12 years now, starting in 2012, just about 11 years. So my clan is Ashi. I do a class chain. Todi chain does a chado to Bahamas and Nale. I then slid on late in Lena Nasha. And then I've been in this business with Parks and Recreation, park operations when I was started with Kenyon Deshay as a park ranger. So I do have the background for this position. I'm glad we're here today to not only discuss the legislation, but other issues that have been raised and that other issues that we have internally in the department. Thank you.
Good morning, RDC. Good morning, Paul Begay. I appreciate the opportunity to speak before all of you this morning. My name is, again, Elvina Arviso. I've been working with Navajo Parks and Recreation for about 8 years now in different capacities within the department. And I'm originally from Hunters Point, Arizona. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Shabala.
Good morning, Yate Shanantai, Chairman Ricky Nez, Ado Dutta, Shanantai Thomas Walker Jr., Ado Shanantai, Mark Freeland, Doll Wilson Stewart, Ado Shananaki Allen Begay, Doll Trisma Ashpal Begay, Shea Rudy Arshabala, A Shij, Ado Division of Natural Resources, Martin L. Begay, Doll Shitsila, Museum Director, Aberson Dashnish, Adon the Nazlinda Yisi Nasha, Ado Adon and Shlenigi Sitna Jenny Chishitish Cheatney, Ainshla, Ado Shachina Kachi in Linda, Ado Shijenda Nash Ejan Linda, Ado Danils Isliko, Nits Arden, Ado Todachini, in he yado, Nihi Yado, and Hidin, in the Tan days of that now, a sheet with a knowledge door. I call that a Hidini dollars.
Shabala. We do have from the Office of the President, Vice President, Mr. Dave Filfred.
Good morning, Chair and members of Resource Development Committee and all the delegates and everybody on the line. Davis Filfred from OPVP, Executive Staff Assistant. I'll be listening in and have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Filfred. Do we have Department of Justice on the call?
Good morning, Veronica Blackhat with Navajo Nation Department of Justice. Just want to say good morning to everyone, Chair and members of RDC and everyone else listening. I'm going to go back on mute now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Blackhat. Anybody else on the call that wishes to introduce themselves?
Good morning. My name is Adeline Tahani, Park for Monument Valley Tribal Park. My clients are
Thank you.
Everyone.
Anybody else?
My name is Lee Martin.
Go ahead.
My name is Lee Martin. I'm the Welcome Center. Thank you.
Anybody else? None. Hakushila. We'll move down to number 2, the purpose of our work session on the agenda. The Resource and Development Committee will be conducting a work session on table legislation 0053-22 with the Division of Natural Resources, Navajo Parks and Recreation, and Navajo Nation Museum to discuss the merger of the Navajo Parks and Recreation and Navajo Nation Museum under the Division of Natural Resources. After the work session, legislation 0053-22 will be added to the committee's next regular meeting agenda for action. Number 3, presentation discussion. A, presentations by the Division of Natural Resources, Navajo Parks and Recreation, and Navajo Nation Museum on the amendments to the plans of operation for Parks and Rec, the Museum and Division of Natural Resources for legislation 0053-22. Presenters will be Dr. Rudy Shabala, Division Director for DNR, Mr. Martin Begay, Department Manager, Navajo Parks and Rec Department, and Mr. Manuelito Wheeler, Director, Navajo Nation Museum. Karoshik, we'll go to Dr. Shabala first. Before we go to Dr. Shabala, I'll have the sponsor of this legislation, Honorable Mark Freeland, make a statement on this.
Thank you, Chairman. I feel like I'm in a courtroom. I need to raise my right hand on this. Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity to come before the Resource and Development Committee once more. In regards to the legislation 0053-22, as the sponsor of the legislation, I just wanted to thank you all, my colleagues, first and foremost, for having this work session and the opportunity to have these presentations and discussions put forth and related to this very important initiative. I really want to emphasize the importance of this because it is a merger between the Navajo Nation Museum and Navajo Parks and Rec. I know we had some concerns related to operations at the parks, but that's a separate matter and a separate discussion that we could possibly have at another time with Mr. Brigade directly. But this plan of operation for the museum would go under the Navajo Parks and Recreation. That's why that was the intent of the legislation, was to bring these two entities together under the Division of Natural Resources. So Chairman, as a sponsor, I look forward to our discussion today, and I look forward to putting this back on the RDC agenda for the next committee meeting. Look forward to all the discussions at hand, as well as any favorable consideration that you would give to this legislation, Shanta. Thank you very much, Chairman. That's my opening statement this morning. And but that, I just want to turn it back to you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Honorable Freeland. Just a reminder, we do have a meeting today with Arizona Senator Kristen Sinema, approximately 1:00 p.m. today as well. At this time, we'll give the floor over to Dr. Rudolph Shabala.
Thank you very, very much, and Chairman Ricky Neshiche. Kodo Navajo Nation Resource Development Committee. Nihidato Nikai. Division of Natural Resources. Do Parks and Recreation Department. out of the Navajo Nation Museum. These two departments are within the Division of Natural Resources. Ka Shanache Manuelito Wheeler Bisnashnishko. Ado A Konane Nation Shananache Martin L. Begay Bisnashnishko. Ado Yisindad Nishigido. Belsheda Sassido Belsheda Hass. This is the Nebelta Alini. The Nayat Ehon Sata Casey. The Nayat Eho Yetaski. A Navajo Nation Parks and Recreation, do Navajo Nation Museum, Yandalnish. Benanish Ayota Yotne. Ne Koja Asai yet Hotasi Yinigi. Ado Wheatfields Lake. Ado Ada Sabi in Sky. Adon Leda Estlensa. Ado Koja. Haho Zoy Din Hita Ad Kota. Parks and Recreation Ben Danish. Nzagoit Betrat the Hanza. Itranda the Ka. Ado Toda Belagana. Yego. Ni Trahandatle. A base of its Ado. Nikilyahin Deti the Kosansani Translni Eta. A Sodadat Eskal. Ko. Nebeta that is inside. Asa Naha. Has trans out that the meals a Parks and Recreation. Pianan Dahne. Anzago, but ya Hatzat the Cospelina. Ado the Navajo Nation Museum. Askita Nisha Nalia Ad Nijonako Nisha A Quackis Gisco Ad about Hoya Nasnel in Has Tuya Bichish. Ye Bichaji and the Hassan Ad Nasling Ojon Jish in ish jish. Aron the Anni go Yego Nachayeta a Chahnat I halt ego. Ein leg Trotan Lin Ad Sachit and I Hashitani Adep Honest Ashi Dani Chahnat I ha begin das so begin das Chango. Haila Bahadoni. Not that any hitadini. Aro o ze any hinadadoni. Aron the da ayakini. Esto ni hitadini. A court sabi in the sky there hat kashi. John Holiday will yende in has tweet. Eshi babel honne, die Jahnat, I can't eat nil. Not that in hidan, aro a yakin in hidan. Don't need of honne. And there in Nijin, John Holiday. Sash what our nash engine. Aro na key gone. Esh to hot our nash not don't need. Travone, so anegi jahnat. Eisha put up in a stodog in a shant not out nation. There's a tao, there's a tank at the tank eat up. Eat ha ish catching. Eben nash each ahnat, I told up the neba none day. Ek at the Navajo Nation Museum de Ba Hoya. Hatashi Hashin Zade and Has tweet. Yeah, that's it that then. That's a note the Elian. A cohodik at Naha. Based on hitch a coho. museum ayo yail kil hui khai ap ched op ched ta ako ched nhan da al tante aro alle tanal ind peso git peso benina kwa an sa din ata be sa si clean aro hot Yehotes Manuelito Wheeler Schitzel Aaron Detta Martin L. Bicky Deed Ashkishin Dale Nishkoshan Peso Gibenina Akoho the museum in later Nas Tanago the signs tribal parks the Navajo Nation Aro they're able to merge successfully with the Parks and Recreation. Banda seat ancient based up in Nacha O. Arona Belache, na Nishiki, Sasha, but the Hoto Nisha Ekoko, the Nen Lini, the Neban Dale Nishi, Ebaya Hot Etot Noach, Nana. The tribal parks will benefit from the addition of the museum. Out of the museum, though, they have skills and ability and knowledge to help with science. And with these science, ni kako the nebesta atjeo and hidden clean. Nkiliat ele the nebes sign that se come. Are na shakodona shat the nench needs into. Ko eben nash Arona nish ek ndal nishikito. Ko best the bahalon of this. Edan hini kedi di benishan and I conso has street or this here.
An statement on this merger of Navajo Parks and Rec as well as Navajo Nation Museum. Kuroshik and Mr. Martin Begay, you have the floor, sir. There's a microphone right by Honorable Begay.
Not have or given us this this time on the legislation that's being discussed to merge the Parks and Recreation with museum, or the museum will be merging under Parks and Recreation Department. Previous discussion we had before, there was a statement made that I'm taking over the museum, but that is not the case. This is a joint decision that we made with myself and Mr. Wheeler, mainly because we are in agreement that the merger will be in the best interests of both departments. First of all, the Navajo Nation Museum did originate from the Parks and Recreation Department. It was first located in the fairgrounds where the old buildings are. And then they got some funding from the Bicentennial Commission to establish a better facility. And as you may or may not know, the Navajo Nation Zoo was also a part of the museum at the time. So with this commissioned bicentennial funding, they were able to construct the zoo in its present location. And then later funding resulted in the Peterson's Museum, Visitor Center, and Library. So there are also other departments that originated from the Parks and Recreation. One of these is the Historic Preservation Department. Again, started out actually as the Cultural Resources Management Program. And then the other program was the Rangers Department of Resource Enforcement was also started under Parks and Recreation. And their responsibility was mainly in the protection of the park resources. And I mentioned before that we believe that this is in the best interest of both departments because the tribal parks have a need for professional museum development. And Page at the Antelope Canyon Visitor Center, it's still sitting there, but without any exhibits or displays to put inside that building. The other part that needs museum services is the Navajo Nation Welcome Center, which is there at the junction to Monument Valley. And this also needs some museum development. And then the other park is Monument Valley Tribal Park. Previously, the museum had helped establish the museum inside the visitor center with displays and exhibits, and also signage that was placed throughout the building. And then the other part that would benefit would be the Four Corners Monument. We had envisioned an interpretive center there at the Four Corners Monument. And we had started that work with the funding from the federal government, in which they pledged $2 million that other entities had to match. And so we were involved in that and contributed most of the matching funds to that project, which resulted in the vendor market there. And then the vending, the monument itself was rebuilt. And then we had put in a water restroom, but due to the ground shifting underneath, that facility became more or less unusable, even though we do have water available to put into that facility. At the museum itself has need for professional staff that will help them rebuild their facilities and their exhibits. And like I mentioned before, they will also help the tribal parks to develop their museum and the interpretation programming. Currently, we are seriously lacking in interpretation and providing quality information to our visitors that come from all over the world. So I think that this legislation is feasible and it can be done. And we are prepared from Parks and Recreation to make sure that this merger works efficiently and effectively. So with that, I want to thank the committee again, and I'll give the floor over to Mr. Wheeler. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Begay. At this time, we'll have Mr. Manuelito Wheeler. You have the floor.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and thank you, members of the RDC Committee and Delegate Paul Begay, listeners on the Zoom meeting. As you know, my name is Manuelito Wheeler. I'm the director of the Navajo Nation Museum, and I had to do some quick math a little while ago when Martin said he was here for the amount of time that he was here. And then it made me realize, like, wow, I've been here longer than Martin in the capacity. I know Martin's been with the tribe for way longer than I have. So I've been with the tribe in my position for almost 14 years now. But I think with COVID, it kind of seems like the last 2 years are just a blur. And I felt like I was here for 10 or 11 years, but you know, so I've been with the tribe and with my job and, you know, done the best that I can do in that position. And I think I've really pulled some rabbits out of a hat, so to say, with some amazing projects. And but at the same time, like Delegate Freeland said, nobody's perfect, and there are some miscomings from my directorship that, you know, I wish I could have done better in certain areas. So like Martin stated, the museum, it originated in 1961, and it was created by our delegates back then in cooperation with the Navajo Nation chairman of that time. So our ancestors from then, they had the foresight to say, we need a museum. And they put the legislation together and they made that happen. So, you know, we have the second oldest tribal museum in the country. And that's something to be said for our leadership back then. So now we're about to put that decision back in our leadership's hands to see what is best for the Navajo Nation Museum. The Navajo Nation Museum has moved 3 times, in case for those of you that don't know. You know, like Martin said, it was originally at the fairgrounds. I don't know if any of you remember that. And it had a zoo there, and unofficially they even had a monkey as part of their zoo. And how that happened, you'll have to talk to that director of that time. But it really has an interesting history. Another thing is my mom worked for the museum when she was a teenager at that museum, Carol Wheeler, and my dad is Al Wheeler. So that's, you know, it's real interesting how I grew up and this became my profession. It's something I always aspired to do, to be part of, was just a creative environment. So, you know, it was at the fairgrounds, then it moved to the Arts and Crafts building. There was a museum in the back there. And then under Peterson Zaw, Chairman, President Peterson Zaw, and Dr. Bob Russell, they raised the funding for the building where I'm at now, the big building. So that's it's a big, beautiful facility. And you know, we've really done some great things, including bringing the original treaty back. I don't know if you remember that, and that was on display there at the museum. And as a result of that affiliation, somebody stepped forward and donated the 3rd copy of the treaty. So that's in our collection, along with what Dr. Shabala said. There's some really powerful things that are in our collection. So, you know, this is a place that we need to really take care of. But with having a big facility like that, it costs money to maintain it. And you would assume that Navajo Nation facility maintenance takes care of that for us. But because of how the agreement was before I came on board, they don't take care of that. Not officially anyways. So when things happen, I have to talk with the director of facility maintenance, and we come to an agreement, and they'll come and help us out. But you know, it's not an automatic thing that happens. So there are costs associated with a museum, not just the personnel, not just the operating, but there's maintenance, there's all of our educational programming, et cetera, et cetera. So as I've been the director there for 14 years, when I first came on board, that was under President, who's that under? Before, yeah, Joe Shirley, before Ben Shelley. And that was during a time when the funding was good for Navajo Nation, because we were getting a good general fund from the government, but also because we had good oil and gas revenue. And you guys are the RDC, and you know it way better than I do, that fossil fuel is, the demand for it is dramatically declined. And because of that declining in revenue, that's affected us. And it's not only affecting us, there's other tribal programs, their general funds are declining. So after a certain time, every year, the general fund gets cut. And because of that, it's like we take a little cut every year, we take a little cut every year, we take a little cut every year. And it's almost like for me, and I'm sure other programs like that are like that out there, it's like I'm just getting pushed closer and closer to the edge until before you know it, I'm gonna fall off. And because of declining, that declining funding, you know, we hear it from council and we hear it from president's office. No layoffs, no layoffs, no layoffs. But before you know it, I'm backed into a corner where I got to start laying people off. So that's the situation that I'm in. And everybody that really knows me knows that the museum is special to me, and I take my job seriously. And I want to do the best thing for our Navajo people. And so that's why I started to think, how can we secure funding for the museum that is long lasting? It's not just a one-time thing where we get funding and when it's gone, it's gone. So then that's when I started thinking, and when I approached Martin Begay at Parks. And I know Martin's been around for a long time, you know, involved with Parks and other tribal programs. But Martin knows, like he said, the museum came from Parks. And you know what? The Rangers also came from Parks. And like Martin said, historic preservation came from Parks. So Parks, they generate great revenue from many sources. And that's where I thought we can help make them better. I've been to Monument Valley. When I first came on board, I think I came on board in 2008. And by 2010, we had put an exhibit in Monument Valley. And in that exhibit, there was a picture of, at that time it was Ben Shelley, then the council delegates from that time. And then, you know, I moved on. I moved on to museum stuff, moved on to everything else. And then maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I'm getting a call from Monument Valley saying, we need a new exhibit. This one's old. And the picture of Ben Shelley is still up, you know? And to me, I want to help them, but I don't have the time or I don't have the funding. So I'm moving on and I'm trying to direct them from afar saying, go talk to this person, this graphic designer, go talk to this curator you can hire. And they're great people at all of these parks. They work hard and they work with the public, and working with the public is not always easy. So I don't fault them at all. They just need some direction. And that's part of what we can add to Parks and Rec. To all of the parks, each of you council delegates are, you've been to our parks around the area. And then you hear about it, about, oh, that, you know, this, I wish they had this, or I wish they had that. Now, I'm not saying we're going to be the magic wand and it's going to make everything better like that. It takes hard work. It takes hard work and it takes time. But those things the museum have, we got hard workers and we got people to devote the time to it. We just need help with the funding. And we need to make sure the future of the museum is secured. You know, I'm getting old, I'll admit it, and I'm not going to be there forever, but I want to make sure the museum is in a good place to go into the future. So in terms of something that is viable, a viable, let's say business, you know, if we help the parks look better, that means more visitors come, more visitors have a good experience. And that in turn means that they're going to go out and tell somebody, we had a real good time at Monument Valley. We had a real good time at Four Corners, and other people are going to come. So that's going to increase visitation and that's going to help them. So, you know, those are reasons we got something to benefit from each other, Parks and Rec and the museum. And this isn't our first time working together. We worked together with them. We helped with the Monument Valley exhibit. Parks sponsored the Navajo Star Wars. That's how we got Navajo Star Wars done. At a time when nobody wanted to help us with that project, Parks stepped forward and said that they would help us. And then with the Navajo Nation Fair, we helped them many times with the Navajo Nation Fair, and especially in the part of the fine arts market. We always do that for them. So we've had a good working relationship over the years. So, you know, in conclusion, I kind of want to say that we want to be proactive in figuring out an answer on how we can make the museum sustainable and how we can help Parks and Rec be sustainable. Because as I mentioned earlier, the general fund doesn't seem to be growing. And there are going to probably be other programs that are going to start thinking about mergers in order to benefit each other. But for us, we want to be proactive and we want to come up with an answer before the problems hit. And I think this is a great answer. So, you know, in conclusion, you know, we have the services, we have the talent, and we have the creativity at the museum. And we want to help Parks with that. They have it, and we can learn from them. We're not going in there at all. I'm very humble about my approach to many things. And I'm open and willing to learn from things from them as well. So, you know, I think this is a good move. It's a move that is long lasting. You know, 1961 to what? We're in 2020. That's over 60 years ago. So 60 years from now, you know, we all need to hope that this museum is still going, that the parks are still going. And this is something to help ensure that. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. I'm glad my colleagues put the brakes to this legislation and tabled it, because here we are, this is what we needed to hear at the table. We're hearing more of what we normally don't hear on a teleconference meeting during RDC. Kareya, everything's clear here to us. And if you read the first page of the legislation, I think this is something that leaders always look to base their decisions on, and should be. Is it in the best interest of the Navajo Nation? And that's something that we need to ask perpetually and say, so this is good. I don't hear any opposition, but you're humbly seeking, as you said, you learned something. We also learned something, Mr. Wheeler. And now I'm sitting here thinking, wow, this is what we needed to hear. We should all be proactive in searching for solutions. And you're right, Mr. Wheeler. When the Navajo Nation was so blessed with fossil fuel money being generated from it, man, there was a lot of money. I mean, previous delegates years ago, when they introduced a legislation, they were paid, I don't know, how much was it? $300 per legislation. That is a lot of money just given out. Today, we don't get paid for a legislation, which is good. Which is good that we don't get paid. This is what we do as public servants. We serve the public in the best interest of the Navajo Nation, not that we should profit from it, but rather we should give and provide some solution to ameliorate the great Navajo Nation. How do we do this? I'm glad you brought out the fact that your awareness and your heart of compassion when leadership kind of pushes you up against a wall into a corner, telling you no layoffs, and you're looking, counting your pennies, checking your wallet, make sure that you have enough money to operate the museum. And your heart goes out to your workers and you make it happen. You make it happen, even though you know there's not enough money to go around. Where do we go? Now there's a merger here, which is good. I'm glad that this is going to work, and I'm glad Honorable Freeland's sponsoring this to see how this will, the results will show soon how this will all work out. So, yeah, Mr. Begay, for your leadership, as well as Mr. Wheeler. Appreciate what you all do for the Navajo Nation over there and how you're seeing this merger as a plus. So, yeah, Shananta, Sashbaha, Zito, Nidal Kiddish. Honorable Herman Daniels, you have the floor.
Mr. Chair, Untitled Resources and Development Committee, Navajo Nation Parks and Recreation, Mr. McGay, Navajo Nation Museum, Mr. Wheeler, thank you. Yeah, it's Hago. Adonana Quato Adaquigo She Bahades Seki Halnotide today in regards to the merger. Quato Ado Sazandiki. I support this, Quato. I support this. But Quato Nagaitam, Shadish Agi Quato Shananta. Nagaid throughout the Navajo Nation, there's several tribal parks. Nagaid, Monument Valley, Antelope Canyon, Little Colorado River Gorge Tribal Park, my Chase area. I think the Four Corners. I don't know. I know there was a Saigit. Is it still a tribal park? Saigit. I don't know. Wonder Rock. Ot echo. Adonana na gaidam Grand Falls don't nashkida and that's the coco na gay my concern nigi yakwado asha oyo hatashin hala on the 27th ashin e yan ekwado akoya de khinagay Manama Valley goya. I can't even read my own handwriting. But Manama Valley goya de kho nagay to meet with the tribal park residents. Manama Valley goya ket enigi. Agi do nana kwado. Baby che na hot igishi yen hil da hot ilne. Nikil bahos na kwado shanat ahos lenigi. Nagay Manama Valley. Basic she do haloda within the tribal park boundary. Aronana water. Twinde do hadaz lida. Nikile hanit ile besha how neat eno hanatzi. Adonana kwado when we had the tour operators meeting. I had zita one of the park residents, grazing permit holder in Lum. Yen hitcha had din haidi kill RDC in Hado ka. Then he does so 80 on the 27th we had the Kido let go. Adosana Shuche. The area to Cameron, as to Ajo de Credolas, Ajo and Dazdi. According to tribal park stage, the busiest tribal park is Antelope Canyon. Adonana on a Monument Valley. Skidai Monument Valley there. I watch buses lay highway go yard kid until Magada interest with the that's a starter. I used to work for Monument Valley back in the 80s. The Queer changed as a park maintainer 1, park maintainer 2. I don't know security than the other shot. Queer changed with the Parks and Recreation under the leadership of Mr. Begay, Mr. Frederick White, Mr. Gorman, and Mr. Davis, that Ege. Adan dal na show park managers dan lo directors dan lo na gaits ka hot zande ayeo pashin dashish na shoko ako ita hot at oyet o ayeo siket en halankat I see the ne bit isha aronana peso yahana hinte o nagaita Manama Valley and other tribal parks ako to I see ye got the nebe ba ka na ye dan halan ko a coach hajo ban ad ket enigi so ile khait ba ka ti le watlan so ba ban ses ke se ko azadat na gaida that eslen hota hasanje dona na gaida that is hot sajuta four corners ajuta so ADIC shit isha adonana kwado ani hote sega hot zande. We used to get the $40 million about anago. NGSP body, they're no longer there. So a basically a bohilza a crocodile merger the negation abohonetza out and the halita could lead at the neck head and I see baby Bacadi was landsway based on nan piggy halita baby can't or what la chota babans case of hope. Ako hashi hot $8. Queto nas what they jizo. Neznana na dena the shin hate $8. Ako queto zoda was a bet or dot daddy. Hatnan halen adol there. Base of a deal niche. So kada hot hydrogen by yield. Hans or the base of ya $9. So what are the yield here? That no do obachana alte ako quite it always is Halahot 8 or Lansoy and Redam 10 years, 20 years down the road. Equagibans, that's case ago. Beso no ARPA funds in the rate on out Ajabet so state of it and he pays a quen and day I see in the bit nil dollars. Hashing $8 Hashnet like Yana $8 a call. 80 question is Aquado chair. Adonana Quado Baha od Ziggy Quado Nagay Ani Hote. At the house Argo Nagay which all was lost signs that Janesh Intle. On the Navajo Nation, I see signs at Kondahas Lad. If you leave Kienta going towards Shiprock, those signs also. Begin the has Lad or ye do yat ehonal Adonana Kodonagay Ani Hotel Hilkana, she dolet between the museum and the Parks and Recreation. Nagay dam exhibits that. I see it the Hoye and need Nagay Monument Valley. When you go into the visitor center, though I see how long that exhibits Sikia, Nagay dam Nagay China, Gahaki tours, they Kagi, they the Nosh in Shiki. That echo. So other tribal parks are showing what echo. A Konagay Belaka National. Ayego. Hashita Ila Nagay dam, Kienta, Burger King. Adonana Nagay dam. Inside Burger King, he has that exhibit. Coat Talkers exhibit. Adonana Ojiko. The two Hogans, Adochato. Now there's a big shade inside it. Now there's some exhibits in there. Hashita Ila Johnny Echo. Mr. Mike Shield again. But in the Shigi. A conjunction that's a what I seen John Doe lessons on a Bansas case. I know he reaches out to Navajo families. I don't leverage hotel. So what so it also has seat or let go to chair and you have the nan lineage lady cats in the day within the tribal parks they has not under. But other than that, I support the merger. So Ecuador. Thank you.
Honorable Freeland, Honorable Daniels. Khaydi Benabedin's kid. Either one.
Mr. Chair, Kodo Bahnaidesh Kidiki Kodo Khalita laid at Nekhet any Bakati Washa. So Nagada tribal parks that in Nishiki Parks and Recreation she that's a Nabadesh Kido Letico. So it I don't Hidoshin Kodo a Akuya de Kido on the 27th. We're going to hear from the residents at Lokodo. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Daniels. Aro denne yego banchen kesko. Bikeden ito bechen da hastigi pe pa hun zanigi kroshi Mr. Begay not kro bananish il any bestafil not hadot Mr. Begay.
Now here to the committee. When I started with Parks and Recreation, I actually started at Monument Valley Tribal Park, a park manager in Shlong. About 4 years. At that time, we had a consul delegate from that region. Actually, Mr. Daniels' father, Herman Daniels Sr. A resource committee at Kanlong. I see Yego Nikan Aluo or Gis. Nikan Aluo ainly other the view hotel, the Slenigi has Anagi. Nikaije from Resource Committee. Aged Eliado Tonet water line, auto power line, agi upgraded Alia. Okohod lay Nikitlas Ago. Akut Ae Yan hidden out Ae Ya Panside Casto Baka Nature Abdanil Anago. Lay Monument Valley, a teen, and Ajniston, Stedalia. Before then, it used to be a really rough road to go into the valley for not only the visitor, but also the residents. At this current time, we're looking to finish that project with another area that's really in need of improvement from where the past project ended. We're looking at about a 2 or 3 mile stretch that is really rocky. And so we're working on improving that stretch so that there's not much problem with people that are going into that portion of the road. Although we have that legislation that's been pending for about maybe about half a year or 6 months. And the problem we're facing is the lack of cooperation, I guess you can call it, from the controller's office, as well as OMB. They can't get their come up with a solution as to how that can be corrected so that the legislation can go through. We do have the funding available, but the legislation I don't under 4 corners of monument. A water line extension in Delia from about 2 or 3 miles. The monument was ange. They past that, maybe about a mile, there's some families living there. And they were able to get connected from this water line, as well as those people that are living along the way. At this time also, we are working with NTOA to extend the power line from Eastern's Bus to the monument, which is about 6 miles. And so in the same way, the local residents there that live along that route will also be able to get connected to the power source. Antelope Canyon, Litchi, we are helping with the Water Resources Department to get water from Lake Powell to extend the water line into Litchi. And we have contributed funds for that project also. And we hope to keep working with them to keep extending the water line down through Copper Mine, Podaway, and eventually Cameron. So there are other ways that we also are able to help, and indirectly to these areas. And they Monument Valley International Shandong a Lambedasen Nigi. There was a couple that used to be there, the Jacksons. One of the viewpoints again. Watched a holy adult. Adult like Kedat in Equina, the Alapeda Liaki Atai Jago. Quinapandani. There's about 4 vending areas that are set up for their use. Ado Lat and tour operations, which are the vehicle tours, the horseback tour, on the hiking tours. There's about 30 of those tour operators that operate there. So we do offer small business opportunity for families to generate some income just for their basic needs. Although the View Hotel that's there at Monument Valley, they collect sales tax, 6% sales tax from their operations that is available to the local chapter once they are certified. And due to the great number of people that visit there, the revenue there from the 6% is substantial. So the residents can, the chapter can get access to these monies once they are fully certified. Although we do have vendor markets at other places like Little Colorado River, Cameron, Coda, on the road to Grand Canyon. There's a significant traffic going back and forth. And we're working currently on establishing a vendor market at one of the overlooks that they can use. And then the other vendor area we have is at the Welcome Center, the Ojeto Gouldings, that's open to vendors. And then we also help assisted the local community in putting up their post office at the Welcome Center. The old trailer they used to have used as a post office was in pretty bad shape. So we worked with them from the Welcome Center to put in this post office. That's the way that we're helping the communities also. And then there's what we call the Navajo Youth Empowerment Services Program that is working with the local youth, not only in Monument Valley, but the other parks, to provide outdoor activity like hiking and biking, and also provide a bike repair service for the locals. There are several tribal parks that we have. Most of those are in the western or in Arizona. We don't actually have any parks in New Mexico except for a portion of Bull Canyon Recreation Area in Acai Lake. They benetko tas on the camp Acai Lake no. And facility Nazniliki, they are in real great need of upgrade and rehabilitation. In some cases to be rebuilt. And when this is accomplished, we will be able to provide facilities for organizations that want to use those facilities for health purposes, education, cultural education, and so forth. And then the other portion we have is just the New Mexico portion of the Four Corners Monument. And then another park that's being considered at the request of the local chapters in New Mexico is Shiprock Pinnacle. We're doing a feasibility study on that to determine if it would be best as a local park, a regional park, or a tribal park. So the families that live in Monument Valley, the residents, we are cognizant of their needs. In the valley, they need water, they desire power. And our mandate that we have from the Parks and Recreation Department is to protect and preserve the tribal parks for future generations. And so we have to do a balancing act as to how we can help the local residents, but yet maintain the valley in a pristine condition as much as possible. Not just for the visitors, but for our own cultural and religious purposes for our Navajo people as a sacred area. So we are willing to help the local residents in possibly developing the water line, which would have to be taking into consideration the need to preserve the area, as well as the power line. We have had discussions with NTOA as to how that could be done. And then Water Resources Department has also provided an assessment of the groundwater availability in Monument Valley. And in the past, there used to be numerous springs, a place called Sand Springs that had water. There was a pump there at one time. And so lately they have established a collection point, which is not really a great amount of water, but at least it's enough to provide for the livestock that's in that park. So we do have a listing of projects that we are looking at, not only just the ones that I have mentioned, but also the future projects. We have developed a 5-year capital improvement plan, which we would like to work further with on the committee. And this will be a lengthy discussion as we review the list. And earlier, about a month ago, I did ask for a work session with the committee for this purpose. And the other issues that we have, which we would like to have a work session on also, is the issues that we are having with the National Park Service, primarily in the Western Agency with Grand Canyon, Glen Canyon Recreation Area. And then there are other Park Service areas like Canyon de Chelly, Navajo National Monument, which we do have some concerns about how we can work better with them, and also to continue to exercise our rights as a sovereign nation and not be dictated to by the federal government in the area of the national parks. So with that, with the chair's approval, I would like to have my assistant Alvina Urviso go over some of the projects that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Begay. Honorable members of RDC, ARPA projects listing. So thank you for your response at this time. We have a couple of folks from the Office of the President, Vice President that walked in. Mr. Honorable Leonard Solsi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee and staff that are here. Shay Leonard Sosi. I work with the Office of the President and Vice President, and it's an honor to be here. So I think we've been trying to work with Parks and Rec too on the Colorado River use. So I think we continue to do these things, these enterprises. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
There you go. Ms. Clashen.
Yate Bennett, Teresita Clash in Yenisha. I'm with the Office of the President. I am an executive staff assistant. It is nice to see everyone again this morning. So thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Freeland and then Honorable Paul Begay.
Chairman, thank you, Mr. Begay and Mr. Wheeler. Thank you again. I appreciate you bringing up, the past, and we can always learn from history and moving forward. And, just thinking about at one time, how our general fund had a lot of funds available for programs. And it's situations like this that we come to now that, I hope this is not the first of many mergers to take place, but because of, funding being dilapidated, that, we come to a situation like this, unfortunately. It's a good situation. It's a lot of potential in a situation like this. But, I always think about times, especially during budget season, when we have programs under RDC that come to the committee and tell us that they can't afford a travel vehicle. And it's situations like that. The hardest part is to hear of layoffs. And that's the most concerning part. And, I go back to I always used to think of, I'm still green behind the ears since this is my first term as a delegate. But one of the biggest votes that we took immediately as new delegates on 24th Council was the NGS and Kienta mine. And I think about that a lot. I think about that vote. I voted again. I voted on the closure, yes. But I wish I could take back that vote now. I really do. I kick myself for that because I didn't think about this more. How that situation left us with a $40 million hole, and how we need to plug that $40 million hole and add possibly another 40 million on top of it for general fund. I guess my point is, Chairman and colleagues, is how do we find new sources of revenue now? Where do we begin to find new sources? That's probably the biggest question right now. We're kind of at a crossroads now. And you know, what is, I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about a lot of things, and I shouldn't be thinking about things in work especially, but financially, you know, what is the financial future of the Navajo Nation entail? What does that look like? We don't have a crystal ball. None of us can tell that, but it's worrisome. It's really worrisome because it's unknown. You know, we don't have that answer. And it goes back to the idea of voting for the closure of NGS and Kienta. I wish I could take that vote back. I really do. Because we didn't have a plan. We didn't have a plan in place. And to remedy that situation, we should have, I thought you know, I can't take this back, but just thinking about more and more, it's affecting our revenue right now. It's affecting our sources of revenue into the general fund. And when we don't get any new revenues, or when we don't get no new monies, we are faced with situations like this right now because of declining revenues. And I hope this doesn't continue, that we see programs having to merge together like this because of the fund or the lack thereof funding right now. I don't want to use the well as drying up analogy, but we got to do something about the well. We got to do something about finding new sources of funding. And, you know, there's a lot of controversy around helium. You have a lot of people that are saying no and this and that. Now we have hydrogen potential, natural resources. And, you know, if anything, what are the answers then to find new sources of funding to fund our mother government? And, you know, as a delegate, I was really enthused and looking forward to hemp, even the hemp potential. Of course, that got put by the wayside and ruined. But now it's like we're back at square one again. Where do we start as far as looking for new sources of funding? How do we fund our programs potentially? How do we keep that? The museum is so important. And, you know, the zoo is another one. I haven't even talked about the zoo. We haven't talked about the zoo, but it's such a learning, a real way for our kids to broaden their minds and open up their minds as well. And we're so lucky to have that zoo. And the museum is another resource. And, you know, and Mr. Begay, if we can find a park in Eastern Agency, please help us get us a park out there. But these are kind of the concerns I've had, Chairman, and my colleagues all this time. And, you know, it's hard not to think about the financial future of the Navajo Nation. It's concerning. It really is concerning for all of us. And I wish we did have an adequate plan to replace for NGS and Kienta mine. I really do. And, you know, I can't take back that vote, but I learned from it. I really learned a lot from it. And giving it more and more thought, it's an experience that I'll take with me for the rest of my life, whether I'm a delegate or not. Knowing that situations like this, a real tough decision that you have to make, you have to really give it very tough analytical thought. Look at every angle, every word, every sentence, every dot in that legislation now. And that's real important for us as delegates. So, Chairman, I just wanted to mention that and some thoughts. And I don't have any questions or comments, but I just want us to consider the road, the path forward. And I hope we don't have to find more programs having to merge because of lack of funding or concerns of lack thereof funding. and it's hard to hear. It's hard. Even the word layoff is a scary term. But I always remember hearing programs saying we can't even afford a travel vehicle. And those are concerning as well. So, Area Chairman, just wanted to mention that, Chantal. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Freeland. It appears fossil fuel and all that has to somewhere be considered in such a way that we have to go beyond that. Honorable Freeland, the way that it was shut down without a plan, but it gave us challenges to look forward to refocus and explore and visualize our purpose as lawmakers. What decisions do we need to put in place? When we pass a legislation as a 24th council, no matter whether you vote red or green, if it gets passed or if it fails, it reflects us as a whole. It does not just say, okay, you're still a part of the 24th council that made a decision. So there's really nobody to blame. It forces a person to come out and say, let's do something different. Although there's criticism directed at us about Washington office or other things, you look at that office in Washington, the investments that the 24th council made, not just 1, 2, or 3, 24th Navajo Nation Council, okay? How many years has the nation been renting a building? How much money was wasted on renting? Was it wasted or was it money well spent so we could have an office in Washington so Navajo Nation could have access to Washington leaders? You see things differently, and those that criticize will never know what it takes to make a decision. It ages you because you wake up in the middle of the night thinking about the decision that you're going to make tomorrow or the decision that you made yesterday. Sometimes in the middle of the night, you try to go back to sleep. You think and you think and you think. Somewhere, it ages you, but you become more wise. You utilize prudence, how that decision was made. And we just don't get anywhere. But coming together like this merger, it makes sense. It makes sense on how some decisions need to be made. So yeah, what behind though? I don't know behind again how you made that vote, but you're okay. Karoshi, Honorable Paul Begay, you wanted to ask a question?
Thank you, Chair, Auto Vice Chair, members of RDC and presenters, Mr. Wheeler, Mr. Begay. I know that any project, any job involves money in order for it to be moved, in order to get anything done, it needs money. I guess that's the reason why we have these deficiencies in a museum not really being displayed to par as other museums are. I did go to Monument Valley Museum a few years back. anticipating a really attractive, welcoming experience. But and this is not to downplay anything, but I wasn't very happy with when I was leaving of what I saw. It didn't really tell me that we had a good museum. And so these are long-standing issues that require a lot of financial support in order to get it up to par. Same way with the Navajo Parks and Recreation. I'm hoping that this merger will have some kind of a good effect as far as getting these deficiencies or getting these Parks and Rec and Museum up to par. I know that in Western Navajo, I've mentioned it before 4 years ago, that slot canyons were, they were not known. But as time went by, we had a lot of business people, I believe about 15, somewhere around there, associated with the slot canyons in the Chi'i area. And, you know, when you go to a place like that, world renowned, and I mentioned also that Forbes magazine, about 3-4 years ago, they list every year the top 20 go-to places in the whole world. You know, things equal to the Eiffel Tower, all these stuff. And number one ranked throughout the world was slot canyons here on Navajo land. Number one go-to place. That tells a lot. But what we have been trying to get and asking for is some type of support from Navajo Parks and Recreation. When a person wants to go see this world-renowned place, you want to make him feel comfortable, appreciate the visit. One thing that we lack there, water. Restroom, we don't have restroom, not even my porta john. They need to have that available for them more often than the other population. And I can tell you right now, we've had a lot of accidents. Stories being told by the tour guides. And to visit this place that people went from all over the world, across the ocean, to come see, and yet we don't have nothing to show for it as far as accommodations for restrooms and water. And what do we want to do? Fix up the Lake Powell Navajo Recreation Office? The Asian, is that more important? I'm telling you, I'm not very happy with that. They want to spruce up their little office over there, and yet we can't accommodate the millions of dollars that come into the Navajo Nation. And we don't support the little business on the Navajo Nation either. The little business are trying to get back on their feet because of the pandemic. Small business insurance, who did the increase? It's hurting our small business people. And people are coming to me asking, now we're trying to get back on our feet and they increase our insurance again, the business insurance. I don't know if National Navajo Parks and Recreation has anything to do with the Antelope Point Marina. We're having issues with the National Park Service. National Park Service only. I would think Mr. Martin Begay we speak on behalf and just go out and let's help Antelope Point Marina. That's our marina. Sewer lines just coming in and going into the water. I don't know how long that's going to be. I don't think there's safety issues. There's no safeguards. That's part of Navajo. Park Service will not allow us to redo the ramps so to make it safe. Marina, those are the things that we have been addressing for years. The water issue, especially the restroom issue, especially for years. Water line that they had in the four corners. You see the number one go-to place in the nation, in the world. Then I think that these are long-standing issues that we've been addressing and nothing has moved on it. You go in and they we have plans. That's all we hear is we have plans. These are concerns that I have coming from my people and my business people and the people that work there. We're in the summer job time. People that are Navajo people, 300, 400 people that used to work at Marina at Antelope Point, they won't have a job because the National Park Service won't allow our Antelope Point Marina site to get any improvement, to work on the launch ramp, to work on the walkways. They won't allow us to do it. They won't speak for our people. The students, the college students, high school students that used to work there, they won't have it this year because of that. Chair, Honorable Chair Rick Ness. Yeah.
Thank you, Honorable Begay. I certainly appreciate being here with us today. So let me go back to Mr. Begay, your response. It's over by Paul Begay.
Thank you. Thank you again. I do agree with what Mr. Begay has brought forth this morning. And as I mentioned before, Monument Valley used to be the #1 attraction in the past. But since the world discovered slot canyons, that has become the #1 attraction to, as Mr. Begay has stated, to Navajo Nation. Along with that, that area is also had been blessed with one of the two largest reservoirs or lakes in that area, which is Lake Powell. Due to the declining water levels, there's come a time when the electrical power generated by the dam may not be there anymore. And this power used to go to Arizona, Nevada, California. So, as Mr. Begay has mentioned, the National Park Service has not been very cooperative in addressing the needs of the Antelope Point Marina, which is under a business site lease that is with the Navajo Nation, as well as a cooperative agreement with the National Park Service. So with the Antelope Point Marina, their ramp, as far as I understand it, is still in use, but they had requested for extension of their ramp, which was declined by the National Park Service. And the public ramp that's there now is closed because the water is about 30, 40 feet away from the ramp, and it can't be extended. So that has a great impact, not only to the usage of the area for recreational purposes, but it also has an impact to the operations at Antelope Point Marina. As for the situation in Antelope Canyon, Slot Canyon, where the facilities are not acceptable quality, not even for us, but also the visitors that come there. The absence of a water source, a local water source, is the main problem. As I mentioned earlier, we are working on helping with the water resources with the contribution to the water line from the lake to Lichi. And hopefully the tour operations that are there at Antelope Canyon will be able to benefit from this water source. What we would have to work on a way to make the water of acceptable drinking quality, as well as the disposal of the sewage from these uses. And then there are several businesses that are planning or trying to start a hotel resort business just south of the generating station that used to be there. But again, they need the water and they need to address the sewage situation. And there are other issues that I mentioned with the National Park Service, and like the project that we're working on with a local business company, Navajo company, to establish a boat dock on the Colorado River. But we're getting obstruction by the National Park Service again, saying that this is their jurisdiction. And so I think with the addition of the museum, we'd be able to do more marketing, which is one of their big strong points also, so that we can address these issues of the declining situations or visitation at our park areas. I hope that answers Mr. Begay's questions. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Begay, Shnantai, slash Naidos Kid, Bahatish, Ndagaya, Honorable Vice Chair Walker.
Yeah, Chairman, committee members, Shenandoah, Honorable Paul Begay, Nala, other committee members that are on the call, Honorable Stewart, da isa gidato, Bekiloni, Clonigito, Nakano, Ajigito, OPVP, Mr. Sosi, not Echo, Ms. Clashen, Mr. Wheeler, your staff, Mr. Begay and your staff as well, your organizations that have decided to seek merging as a way to sustain operations for one of our departments, one of our organizations. And we are saying that what I'm hearing, that we are in support of that. Now we have these other side issues that are obviously long-standing, going back numerous decades, and then where leadership is bringing those issues back to surface. And of course, along the way, there's emerging issues because of the pandemic, one of the greatest public health threats in our lifetime, I would think. But not yet. Certain issues have come about and are still emerging. What they call money, economy, prices of just the basic goods. We're just watching it rise as we sit here, just watching increase in prices. It's moving away from us. It's only a matter of time that slows down or that ceases, and it'll be a while for us to catch up. So as a government, modern day tribal sovereign government, work is really going to be challenging. And then this is our time for the 24th Navajo Nation Council to make some decisions on the future. I guess each council, when they're in office each month, there's opportunity. Each day, each hour, there's that opportunity. Waiting for someone to move, someone to take action on solving some of these problems. As I hear my colleagues, Honorable Freeland, kind of talking about what took place a few years ago, decisions that were made by the 24th Council. Yes, I agree with colleagues here that we take ownership of that. In Hilak Esalako. Hilka Nati, Nati, Nishe, Ashi Quichin Pahaza, Ashi Hat Ake, Alchas and Dobahaza. Jut huge and has the many issues, many challenges we are focusing at this time during this leadership meeting here, focusing on the museum, the parks and recreation. Mr. Begay, Ashin Hit and Shitano and the just eight on it, Nikita. She Kahulon question nada, Shitadaza. Ashin Co. Did any behind a at the Baban Sikis or the vendors, the artisans that are making a living in our tribal parks, tribal park Parks and Recreation managed areas, I think their businesses, their livelihood, their practices, their arts, their wares, that predates the Parks and Recreation Department. So we assume, whatever they were doing yet, obviously, what affects the Parks and Recreation as a whole, like during this pandemic, the closures, the shutdowns, the different restrictions that were implemented, it affects our people to a great extent. Ako yego ba nakadada hatil to chuda no yeda da hadne ko ni chin na bakait o wala ko ege hat ashi bakait o wala ko ege at adla nada needs in Parks and Recreation do ako controller ko ege at shinge la to si ko at zi ajit ni kitchut no ako idani ania aba ko needs in myself and my Che from Old Jato, we had advocated for our vendors, our artisans that make a living in the parks and recreation managed areas. That support at the time was necessary, and it still is necessary. We're to be doing things that would recover our livelihood, recover our way of life, and certainly the economy. It's taking time and peso and the ayat that on the shato on the nada silitsos the America Rescue Plan Act funding Navajo Nation received. Ako on the nada silitsos ashiba na hatol iban sas case ako kahashi ito nilshinde. But in the meantime, Mr. Begay, under your leadership and your determination, your intention to provide some support and relief to the artisans of Monument Valley and the LCR, I'd like to see that happen. You have my support, certainly, as a legislator. I don't know, Delegate Begay, Honorable Paul Begay, Honorable Daniels, Quadenitson. Dashi had need on it. Quatley, Atilo, Ada, that did need a church in the call. So, quite Ashipa Nahado, the Shape need eat or the Chonso, Ban Saskis, I feel somewhat encouraged as you stated your plans are still in place. It's just a matter of getting that green light, that go ahead to allow transfer of money, according to the controller's office. Joko ishi an habadan lkado latoda nikido ben si zingo yad ishinand ako hatado isabe hatisi di koje museum koje at the dot ala no bandit na li hadishi ikilta hoilne nte ni kaya bakai ndaz yego ishin ben nadi nikidenedo ada Begin has the auto need the Lanahalan. Yego, Nahoti dot, or you to Nebuchadnezzar, Nahoti. Chin auto need the Lanahalan. We hope and pray that that rather not be the case, But as we talk about great need and people are in distress and people need relief, that's the case because we're in this very dangerous pandemic. I see. Oh, you. I don't want to go down there, but oh, you and hit he get nit ati. I thought oh, you and hit nice the. He could go could naha tanigi Loop Bird Springs to Lani Lake Coal Mine. Cameron ko in himahan hije masanache. Stwida yodat anat ani adne da hatrali. Oh, yun hisa yidin. We have, I don't know how long it'll take to recover from that. But life must go on and people's livelihood they must resume it. The Navajo Nation government, a responsible government, and then a powerful tribal government in that is able and capable. It may come down to that day and the the Bansas Kizosetta, chairman do committee members, I could ego Kodot Chaho LCR Tohandleniki Abasa Hodlodani Sil Zed o Hayui the net Tapahoya Dai Yeto Tota Yadayi Nilo Echo. I thought Chidibik kid Naznil e Lichi Trako East Nazka, the Hojan and ye Gotoba, Huiliada. I could call Ado. It is a tremendous, it's a tremendous resource. Ado Lech Ildo is it at the Holno. Ado Konta Nahaga, Na ini the Banahaza. Akut eko at sada ako keda hat at sada tsayaj da zahashne la ho e ton lidande ako eket e panahza ako e LCR be watch the ton lenigido keya a Parks and Recreation ya da e be watch ako o use be e na to ton lidande so ho eko I thought Yakinido she ye got John Hilnoda at the wind either been at the she not a credo lecado hodina or huge nas the quite wind and a lehad she became not the hot a Jupiter dead I could tell you it was Alan Soban's case though. Sad behasi here and back to you, Chairman. Thank you for this time.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair Walker. I'm thinking about the two programs here before us, Parks and Rec and Navajo Nation Museum, and the work that they do is very related. Being a professional artist for over 30 years, I've traveled to San Diego, Los Angeles, Indianapolis, Santa Barbara, Santa Fe Indian Market, Denver. A lot of these art shows, museums that sponsor. And I am thinking, I wonder if we can start something like this on the Navajo Nation. Where would the location be to start an art market, a show like the Santa Fe Indian Market, where thousands of people show up with lots of money and just come, you know? I've showed at Sedona, Scottsdale, I've worked with museums, and there are people out there, just like Honorable Begay is saying, People travel from overseas just to go to Antelope Point, and we have no bathrooms. What is wrong with this picture here? We have to go beyond the status quo. Oh, Khanate, oh, we never get anywhere, you know? And it's time to just break these barriers down and say, let's shake hands on this. And what we all see here, we really need to just partner up, come together and make something happen. Let's make the great Navajo Nation greater than it is now. Oh, yes, sir. I mean, we have a rich culture. We have a language that's famous, that was made really, really famous by the Navajo code talkers. We have artisans, an aesthetic that is just from the heart. We have to market these things and bless our people with it. And sometimes I think it requires that decision has to be made and say, what can we do here? And to look at these parks, Monument Valley, the color, it's just the beauty of what God created. Go down to Canyon de Shade and see Spider Rock, the way people live. How many people just love to go down there on a Jeep tour? And then Antelope Point. And then people just make money off of us. We haven't really planned anything yet. Maybe now it really is time. How do we generate revenue? And I'm glad that RDC works well with OPVP. We have Honorable Sosi here with us today, Ms. Klashen, and we have Davis Filford is always with us. How we can plan with our experts here in their fields, what they know, their knowledge they share, put it all together and make it work. All we have to do is plant a seed, water it, and watch it bloom. And Jonah, back in 2022, we made this decision that it didn't need. We built a foundation. Then could 20, 30 years, look at this. It pays for itself. We should have a state-of-the-art arena at Window Rock for the Navajo Nation Fair. It's time that we start investing in our own, on our own. Just wanted to say that. So, Honorable Freeland, you have the floor. Mr. Begay, anything?
Thank you again, Mr. Chair, and the members of the committee. You know that one of the reasons the visitors come to Monument Valley and the Navajo Nation is arts and crafts. There are other they know about the Navajo rugs and the silverware. And so this is one of the reasons why they do go to the vendor markets, is to purchase these from the local artisans, right, directly from the maker. rather than going to a pawn shop or other in the border towns. Also like to mention that there are other forms of tourism that that is available here on the Navajo Nation. There's the ecotourism, which is mainly the outdoor recreation type, visiting the natural areas, hiking, camping, and so forth. And then there's also the culinary tourism, where people want to experience the foods of the Navajo people. And there's even another one called agritourism, which is based on the agriculture of with the vegetation and the products that are derived from agriculture. So as the chair has indicated, we have so much to offer to the visitors, to the tourists, and even to our local people, of what they can do here on the Navajo Nation. The vendors at LCR, we are working, as I said, on the vendor market to improve facility so that they can sell their handmade products from these facilities. And so we are supportive of our local business people, our local small business people, and it even extends to the communities like Tuba City, Kayenta, where I benefit from tourism, that the tribal parks, which I come to see. And we are very appreciative of the support and the encouragement of the Resources and Development Committee. And I think the other point about a festival is very well possible. And I will leave that to Mr. Wheeler as to his thoughts on what he feels about such an event. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Begay. Mr. Wheeler?
Those were excellent points, Chair, about the arts. And, you know, we talk about people just making money off of us. Well, in the state of New Mexico, where I'm originally from, the capital, that whole town is built on us and our arts. Santa Fe, that whole town, that per capita about 10 years ago, I don't know if it's still the same, I would think it's still the same. Per capita, Santa Fe is the richest place either in the country or either in the world. So we have all these millionaires, billionaires living in Santa Fe, and a majority of them are making their money off of us. How come we as Navajo people haven't figured that out? And that is something I think about a lot as well. It takes organization. The Navajo Nation needs to undergo a very strategic formation of almost unionizing our artists so that we can stick together and we can start to make that revenue instead of other people making the revenue. Just 30 minutes from our own Navajo Nation capital, we have Gallup, New Mexico. That whole town is all fueled by our art. You know, I mean, you just go up and down any major road in that town, and that's our revenue. That's our money. but we get paid a fraction of what they're making. So what you're talking about, Honorable Chair, it really needs some serious discussion. Even the Division Director of Economic Development, he himself is an artist, just like you, but we haven't figured out, we haven't cracked the code. We got to crack that code somehow of how do we do it. So I agree, and I don't have an immediate answer, but I think with our revenue, our funding, I should say, declining from the federal government, I think we need to figure out ways to fill those gaps. So, you know, there's so much that can be said about the arts. And I work at the museum, and in the past, it seems to have happened within the past 5 or 6 years about the procurement process for the Navajo Nation. We have a gift shop at the museum, and recently we can't do business with the artists coming off the street. In the past, it used to be, here comes grandma selling a rug. I want to sell this rug. Okay, grandma, we need to get an invoice from you and a W-9, and then a check will come to you. We'll get a check in 2 to 4 weeks. And most of the time the artists were like, okay, well, let's do that. But now there's the new tribal procurement policy. It prohibits us from purchasing from people, our own Navajo people that are coming off the street to sell to us. And it's part of this. I mean, I'll let Ms. Jeff talk about that process, but it's become strangling to us. It's become strangling how we used to purchase from artists. That's number one. Number two, the what is it called? How we contract? What is it called? We have to get into a contract agreement for somebody that provides a service for us. That's wasting a tremendous amount of my time and her time to do what I would consider low dollar contracts for services. And I think that goes across the board, no matter what tribal program. In the past, it was like, I think $5,000 or $10,000. If it was under that amount, we didn't have to go through this long process. So we have to give, for an example, we have to get our grease trap cleaned out from the museum. And now we have to go through a contract, get into a contract with somebody to do that, to do $100 service. And it's just become ridiculous. So this whole procurement process, it has, in my opinion, and I'm not a financial expert, but just in my managerial opinion, it's strangling all of these tribal programs. We can't move as quickly as we used to. Now, I know that it's for the safety and benefit of Navajo people and trying to safeguard our financial issues, but it cost us our productivity. It slowed us down. I agree if somebody's doing something for 50,000 or 500,000, which we've never been a part of, but for those types of amounts, yes, we need to be careful. But for somebody to do a grease trap for us, we have to get into a contract with them for a Navajo individual, our own Navajo public, to come in and say, I want to sell this jewelry to you. And we say, you have to be on the Navajo business preference list, and you have to have this and this and this. Even for us to do demonstrations, which you guys are asking us to do in the parks. Okay, we want you to demonstrate moccasin making. Well, we have to enter into a service contract with you. Oh, okay, yeah, you need insurance too. And then it's just some little old man saying, what? You're asking me for insurance? Again, there are situations that require those. But for these little smaller amounts, it's really taking up a lot of our time. And that's that's my opinion again with my understanding of everything. So to get back onto your point of the arts, that is a secret gold mine for Navajo people, but we need to crack the code. We have every year during the fair, we have the Nijoni Arts Market. And it's a very successful thing. It's well funded. You know what? The prize money for Nijoni Arts Market is more than the Herd Market offers. It's more than Santa Fe Indian Market offers. We're very generous with our prize money. And that comes from a funding source with gaming primarily, but all these other sponsors as well during the fair. We do get a good amount, but it's not like we're getting those millionaires coming. And you know what? For me, I'm okay with it during the fair. And what I'm about to say, because those type of millionaires, they expect a certain type of lifestyle. And the Navajo Nation Fair is not their lifestyle. They don't want to get their $2,000 shoes dirty, you know? So what we're talking about is creating that type of attraction for that buyer. But the other thing I want to add to that is our own Navajo people are starting to get into that economic bracket. And I know this because we have our Keshmish market at the museum. And I walk around and ask our vendors, how did you do? And the vast majority of them selling $1,000 bracelets. They're like, I did good. I sold these things and I made that money. I've even heard the comment about our Keshmish market that I made more money than I did at Santa Fe. And that's from, I would say, a 95% Navajo clients coming through. So our Navajos are entering into that economic, that financial range to afford those things. And that's great. So we have all this opportunity, Chairman Nez and members of the committee. We just need to, you know, that would take a work session. It would take putting a lot of minds together. And it would take time. I do have, as part of our merger on my list of things, to do art markets at the parks, you know, already offer those art markets. But as some of you know, in certain parks, those artists are territorial. So if I'm like bringing in like, hey, let me bring in the artists from Crown Point over to Monument Valley, you know, there's artists there that they're like, we don't want anybody that's not from around here. So I need to talk to Martin Begay. I need to talk to the park managers as to how we progress with that carefully. So there's all of these things, but I do want to move forward with art markets happening at the parks. I think another thing to take into mind and use as an example is Hawaii, the state of Hawaii. The native people from Hawaii, it's like they just got bowled over because of tourism. Tourism said, open the doors and say, hey, we want any and all tourists to come through. And here come tourists from all over the world, and they're just trampling through and taking over. And their culture is just put Hawaiian culture, they just put it on the wayside and they don't care about it. The tourists come, they want to be there for the beaches and whatever, and they don't care about the native people there. So when we approach our tourism, we need to guard our own culture here and make sure it's taken care of and not just bowled over as well. We're not just in it for the money. Yes, we want that revenue, yes, but we want it in the right way. And that's going to take some time and some figuring out as well. So, you know, these are all things to think about. And that's how I think about it. I worked at the Heard Museum for over 10 years. And I learned some very valuable things there, both positive and negative, about how our art world and how our culture is treated. So, you know, those are things that I take into consideration when I'm doing making my decisions at the museum. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler, for sharing that with us. I do agree that there's millionaires that wouldn't want to come on the nation, get their Luke KC boots dirty. So, yeah. And you're right about Santa Fe. Everything is about indigenous people, Navajos, Pueblos, the art they present there. And I often think about that quite often. A few years ago, I took a class in political science at San Juan College, and Los Alamos had the most PhD per capita. And that was just amazing that all those scientists are there in Los Alamos. And Gallup, New Mexico had the most millionaires per capita. And it's just because of us. During that same year, about 15 years ago, Gallup sold the most pickup trucks. Yeah, the most pickup trucks was sold in Gallup, New Mexico. Thereafter, it's been Abilene, Texas. No, where Lance Armstrong's from. In Austin, Texas. So I think about this. I think we can tap into something like this. As you said, the arts is a secret gold mine, just ready to be dug into. We got to teach our people how to conduct business in that way and market their artwork. So thank you for that. Or we can go to this here. Mr. Begay and Ms. Arviso. Honorable Freeland?
Chairman, can we take a 10-minute break?
10-minute break? Okay. Coffee should still be hot in the corner. Yeah, go outdoors and smoke your cigarette. Okay. 1 o'clock, Oshin. Senator Kristen Cinemas, who we got to meet with. Is it in Navajo Nation time or Arizona time? Okay, local time. So let's just take a 10-minute break and we'll come back. And we can just go through your presentation since we looked through it. I looked through it already and just summarize on what you have for us. And I know this legislation is going to pass here too, so we're not too concerned about that. So let's take a 10-minute break. Welcome back, Carter. Ashe Khanada Haditlas. We'll get started. Parks and Rec Shane Koron Hitendahadlet. We'll just summarize some of this. Very important information that we're going to receive. Aron Khaon Nishigit Mr. Begay. This does not require a quorum, but we do have 4 delegates. I'm going to have my brother here. Should I introduce himself first? Honorable Brown.
Yeah, this is a Resource and Development Committee. Should I Law and Order Committee meeting, but not the say look up as a chain Kiani Dashe. I don't lose the Lana Dashanala. Okay, since the Craigie Navajo Nation Museum, Parks and Recs. Question Canada.
Appreciate you coming, Honorable Brown. I know you wish to be a part of RDC, so welcome. Yeah. Okay, Ms. Arvizo, you have the floor. Thank you.
Afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Alvina Arvizo. I am the Senior Program and Project Specialist for Navajo Parks and Recreation under a newly established section called Project and Development Section. And what we came up with under our respective section was what we have passed out to all of you, which is the projects that Navajo Parks and Recreation, they had numerous managers meetings, supervisors meetings, strategic planning sessions, just in general, all the planning meetings to get to this point here of all the projects. We have 5 years worth, and this first one that you have is for FY20. Then you also have 21 and then 22. A lot of these projects have been ongoing for years, and what our section had to do was pick up a lot of these projects and continue to move them along to completion. A lot of these funding sources have been developed through what we call in accounts, our non-capital accounts. And we only have one capital account, one C account. In terms of how we are trying to move forward with these projects, they are very big amounts. A lot of them are construction related, and those amounts are not what we can provide funding for under our enterprise accounts. So we've had to go and request drawdowns under our revenue account, where the funding that each of the park when funds are received and then they're deposited into that account. In order to draw down these funds, we have to go through the 164 review process. And in that review, we have to go through OMB, OOC, DOJ, and then finally through our respective committee, which is the RDC committee, and also BNF committee. In order to complete these drawdowns, we've had to go and request for meetings between OMB and OOC. As mentioned, Monument Valley Road project was one of the projects that we have on hold currently right now. And that was due to the accounts that we have. The N accounts are non-capital. A road project is a capital project. So we've had to work with OMB and OOC to work through that process. In terms of how we're going to move forward with any future drawdown requests that we're going to have. Currently, we have 6 N accounts, and that's for Four Corners Monument. We have Monument Valley, we have LCR, we have Bowl Canyon, our Lake Powell, and then our Canyon de Chelly. Each of those N accounts that we have, there's only one park that utilized all their funds that they were given, and that's Lake Powell. The other N accounts that we have still have a remaining balance. And we'll say for Four Corners, we've expended 76% of that N account. We've expended 64% of Monument Valley. We've expended 61% of LCR. And we haven't expended anything from our Bull Canyon account. We haven't expended anything from our Canyon de Chelly account. What OMB and OOC has requested of Parks and Recreation is to completely utilize each of the N accounts and the 1C account that was closed in 2013. So the question that we have posed OMB and OOC is, how do we utilize the remaining amount under the 1C account that we have in order to close out that account? So that still has been unanswered by OOC. And we do have one project that is project ready to utilize and expend that fund. For the other accounts, for Four Corners Monument, we are requested to hire, in doing the electric power line extension, we were also requested to hire our own contractor from inside the gateway into Four Corners Monument. For that project, that will utilize the remaining funds that are in the Four Corners account. So that'll close 2 accounts from that point. From LCR, we have 2 projects that are basically in the construction ready process. That will close out our LCR account. Monument Valley, we have 1 project that's going through feasibility study for a restroom, waterless restrooms down in the valley. We also have the road project. That's the one that we're figuring out how we can fund the remaining amount. So that will run through drawdown. We'll be closing out the monument account with what is there, for what funding available is there. And then also the remaining amount will be coming out of the drawdown request. So for Bull Canyon and Canyon de Chelly, Bull Canyon, we do have projects that we're starting through the process right now, meaning we're working with NECA. We're also working with NTUA on 2 of those projects there. So hopefully within the next few months, we'll have those funds obligated for projects in that location, and those will obligate those accounts. For Canyon de Chelly, that has been more tricky in terms of working through our projects, because that part does not specifically, that campground does not belong under Navajo Nation jurisdiction. It's actually under National Park Service. So we've had problems with that, trying to move forward any of our projects. We've had to work with NPS and let them know what our projects will be, and then get their cooperation in moving those projects forward. So depending on when we can work through those issues with NPS, then we'll be able to obligate those funds as well. So again, in moving forward with drawdown requests from this point forward, we are asked to expend what is left of our N accounts and then establish each project its own C account, which means all of these that we have here for FY20, if we're requesting for a drawdown, we are going to have to set up its own C account. So if we look through and look at the other pages that we have here, each respective project will have its own C account. So how we have and will be working with OMB and OOC is similar to what NDOT has with their projects. For each project that they have, for each location that they have, amount that they have, it will have its own C account. So that's what we've had to work through over the last year, 2 years, that we've been working on drawdown requests from this point forward. So it's been a lengthy process in working with the 2 offices and how we're going to actively and proactively get these projects going. So we're hoping that we have fine-tuned this process. It's just working through to get the remaining funds expended so that we can move forward with new projects. So again, the only issue that we've come across is the 1C account that Parks and Rec does currently have. whether we can also utilize those funds that are remaining in that C account. And then that depletes all the accounts that we have under Parks and Recreation, the current accounts that we have. In terms of so that's the project development plans. Does anyone have any questions on these ones before I move to the ARPA funds?
Chair, committee members, the presenters, Parks and Recreation Department, Arviso, the listing, looking at here, the 3-page document, the LCR HB viewpoint development. HB, what is that?
That is the Hellhole Bend. Basically, that's viewpoint 2. Yeah.
Okay, and another one that caught my eye was the Shadow Mountain project. What is that?
That one is the vendor market, which is viewpoint 1. So currently at LCR, we have viewpoint 1 as you're going towards Grand Canyon. It's the first viewpoint. The second one is HHB, that's viewpoint 2. And then one that we have yet to develop is viewpoint 3. And that is where we will be, after we finish viewpoint 1 and viewpoint 2, then we're moving on to phase 3, which is viewpoint 3. So those are currently these projects. How we had them set up is projects that have already been started. They've already done their feasibility. They've done their assessments, environmental assessments, and are construction ready. They're all in different stages. So just depending on which stage that they're in. Viewpoint 1, the vendor market, we've already done the design work on that. So that one next is the construction phase of that. So that we are in the phase 2 of that construction development right now. And we'll be working on funding that one in the near future with the drawdown. For the HHB, that one has already done its assessment as well. And then that one is going into the construction, or I'm sorry, it's going into the design phase right now. So we've already done the feasibility assessments. We're going to be doing the feasibility assessment in that location now. And we're entering into a contract within the next month.
Okay, so what was the HB, what does that stand for?
Hellhole Bend.
Hellhole Bend. Huh. Doesn't sound too appealing.
That's the reason why we're trying to change a lot of our locations within the park, just utilizing the Navajo wording for each location. So that's where we're hoping to get assistance from the museum in changing all of our English terms into Navajo.
So if you translate that in Navajo, it wouldn't be.
We'll have to ask.
Such a ideal thing to reference. Shadow Mountain, Nikki, Shadow Mountain Development, you're saying that's the viewpoint 3? Shadow Mountain, on the 3rd page, your document here at the top. LCR Shadow Mountain Development.
On the 3rd page. Okay, I'm sorry, I did for Shadow Mountain, that's actually viewpoint 3. Hellhole Bend is viewpoint 2. So I'm sorry, I switched that. So for this location, Shadow Mountain, that's where the access road and the parking lot with contact station, that will be the new development further west. So that's the 3rd location. 1st, 2nd, and then the 3rd one. That one is the furthest roadway accessing the canyon I believe it was a little over a mile to get to that location. So that one will be the road improvement, and then the parking lot, and then the contact station. That one only has a graded road, slightly graded road to that location. So we're going to be further developing for the roadway, and then establishing a parking lot, and then the contact station for customers as they're entering into that location.
Okay, so a few years ago, there was a movie actor, Will Smith.
It's that location.
The guy that got punched earlier in the NBA awards. Ada, that's where he jumped off cliff or something.
Also, that's also the same location with Nick Walenda when he did the
Right,
walk
right.
across. Yes, that's that location.
Right, okay. So Will Smith is the one that threw the punch at the other guy, the other actor. So, okay, Hakoshi, just the names kind of not familiar, but I know viewpoint 1, 2, and 3, but not the names. Though, just one last question, Chairman and committee members, presenters, LCR, Grand Falls Park, there's nothing, it doesn't look like you're gonna do anything there for a while. But there are concerns, as always, as with parks, rest areas, parking lots, there's just a host of problems that come with it. If it's not maintained, if it's not serviced regularly, if it's not secured, people just tend to do whatever they want there. That's kind of like the case down at Grand Falls right now. Litter, overnight camping, all kinds of things like that. That's unchecked. So, from Parks and Recreation, I'm just putting it out there. Thank you.
Okay, just to respond, this kind of goes in line with what Manny Wheeler had mentioned earlier in terms of contracts. Just for restrooms, if we were to set up a location with porta-johns, we would have to procure those porta-johns through a contract. Any cleaning services to clean out any of those porta-johns also has to go through a contract. In terms of even picking up trash and then taking it to a local transfer station or another location outside of the area, that also has to go through contract. So a lot of the things that we were able to just pick up a phone and request for a vendor or a contractor, a business to provide these services for the parks, now we're unable to do, because now we have to go through a contract. So if there's a new location that we have to try to pick up along the way, I think that has caused a lot of problems where we've had to provide justification to OOC why we added in a new location, or we have to go through a modification, contract modification, and just add in additional funds. Even that requires a new contract. So that's really delayed a lot of our processes within the department as well.
Mr. Chair, this is Mariana Khan. May I ask a question?
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Khan.
Okay. Good afternoon, Ms. Arvizo. I'm from the Office of Legislative Counsel, and I was trying to understand the process that you were talking about with regard to drawdowns, and I was trying to keep up with you as to the issue that the Office of Management and Budget and Office of the Controller was having with regard to your department's request for drawdowns. And it has, from what I understand from your discussion, was it has something to do with emptying out or other funds. The reason I'm asking, and I'm sorry if I'm being very unclear about it, because I myself am unclear about this process. I get requests to draft legislation for this type of drawdown, and I don't have the enough of a background with regard to this type of a financial transaction and what Office of Management and Budget and Office of the Controller are requiring in this situation. I'm asking about, in particular, the Monument Valley Scenic Road 17-mile loop within the tribal park, within the Monument Valley Tribal Park. And then there was a particular document from the controller saying that there were funds available within the Parks and Recreation Department Enterprise Fund. And I was wondering, is that the problem, that there are other funds available? I'm really sorry if I'm sounding very cloudy on this issue. I am. So please forgive me if you just do a 101 on the drawdown situation. Maybe a couple of paragraphs, and so I can get a better understanding of the situation that the department is in with regard to drawdowns. I'm sorry if I'm sounding I don't know very much, because I really don't know very much about this particular financial situation with OMB and Office of the Controller. Thank you very much for being patient with me.
Thank you, Ms. Khan. Ms. Arvizo, your response.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Khan. This was a very lengthy, I guess, process that OMB and OOC and also our department had to try to work through, only in terms of previous accounts that were established, which were the N accounts. Those were established in 2013. When those, excuse me, when those accounts were established, N accounts are non-capital accounts. So basically those are smaller purchases. So the work that Monument Valley Road Project is not considered a non-capital account. It's considered a capital account. So when we did the drawdown, we were hoping to do the drawdown and put the funding back into that N account. And that's where there was a request from OMB to OOC on how to proceed with that drawdown, whether it would continue as an N account or whether a new C account would need to be established. So that's when further questions came along. We have funding that are still in the N account for Monument Valley. That first N account that was established in 2013 was for the first phase of the road project. And there were still funds available under that account. So the question came to be, do we complete utilizing this N account for that road project, or do we just open another C account specifically for the road project? So there was an agreement. The three of us met, OMB, OOC, and Parks and Recreation, on how we would move forward with that respective project, which is the road project. We would fully expend the N account, and what funding needed to be made available to complete the road project would be opening up that new C account with the drawdown. So at this point, I believe we have $750,000 remaining in that N account. We have to fully expend that $750,000, and the remaining, the drawdown was for $6.6 million. That's to fund the whole road project under Monument Valley. So we have to utilize $750,000 from that N account. The remaining funds will come out under drawdown and opening up a new C account to complete that project.
Thank you for your response, Ms. Arvizo. Ms. Khan, do you have a follow-up question?
Thank you, Ms. Arvizo. Now, I do have a request for legislation on that particular road project. And I don't know if I have misplaced the new budget documents, or if your department is going to forward me the new budget documents after the $750,000 is expended. I'm sorry if I don't sound very clear, but that's my understanding at this point. Please be patient with me. Thank you, Ms. Arvizo.
Thank you, Ms. Khan, for that. Ms. Arvizo?
Okay, at this point, with 750,000, that does not cover, a lot of the expenses under the work that needs to be done for that road project. So in order to move forward, we would need to do the drawdown first, and then we can do basically either an MOA. It was an MOA, the first project, and that was with NDOT to do the work for the first phase. So in this case, it would be similar. We would more than likely enter into an MOA with NDOT to do phase 2 and phase 3. And the funding would come out of the N account, the remaining funds, the 750,000. And then on top of that, the remaining amount from the C account that will be established.
Okay, thank you for your response, Ms. Arvizo. Let's move on down to Honorable Daniels.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much, Kudo, Mr. Chair. Yeah. Okay, I had that question, Kudo, the Kudo has been answered, Kudo. Adonana Kudo, my batski son, so Aja Nagata, Marina Valley Road Project. Adonana right now, the tour season is it started. Moving forward, but looking at the list here, Manama Valley has there's several projects. The waterless restroom, Ecuador Valley. When RDC went out to Manama Valley, we did a little tour down in the valley. The restrooms are needed down in Manama Valley. There's another one, satellite parking lot. John Ford's Point Vendor Market. Manama Valley Metro Mesa Tram Feasibility Assessment. Feasibility Assessment for Tram. Mr. Chair, I don't know, after that I'll have a follow-up.
Thank you, Honorable Daniels. Mr. Begay?
Oh, yeah, thank you. Need a waterless restroom we're trying to put in. There's going to be at 3 separate locations. One is at the John Ford Point, which is the first major stop on the Valley Road. The next one over by Totem Pole Viewpoint. The third one would be by the Artist Point Viewpoint. Those are the main stopping points for visitors. So each one of those should have at least 4 units, 4 separate units. The issue we have with the waterless restrooms is that they need to be serviced regularly, usually on a weekly basis during the peak season. So we do try to get those maintained, but there's a lack of qualified companies that are able to do that in a cost-effective manner. But we will still be working on that waterless restroom project. Where Mr. Delegate Daniels mentioned about the tram. This was brought up about 2 or 3 years ago first. And the idea was to do this tram from south of the View Hotel to the top of Mitchell Mesa. And I believe that there was an old uranium mine operation that had put a cable down from the top where they transported the ore down to the base of the mesa. I don't believe the cable is there anymore. But this is a feasibility study as to how much the project would cost and then the anticipated revenue to be derived from this development. As you know, there are these parks that we have, they should have additional attractions that will draw in more visitors to the park. And then so that the people can spend more time at the park and use more of the services that are provided by the local people, small business people. At the top of Mitchell Mesa, we were envisioning possibility a campground, and that viewpoint will give you a whole a vista, a 180-degree vista, where you can see all of Monument Valley and then going into the states, Utah and Arizona. So this is, again, like a feasibility assessment, whether that would work. But then we also have to keep in mind the sensitivity of these areas as sacred sites. So that will also be a consideration as we move forward into this proposed project for 2022-23. Thank you.
Honorable Daniels, your follow-up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah. Do nas na hol just kudo Navajo Nation kudo ba yel today based on the revenues. This would be a very good project to bring revenue. Nation tram I don't know, put in a campground on top of on top of Mitchell Mesa, or maybe even a little restaurant. That's a very good view from there. I've been up there several times, where the cable goes up. On the other side, there's a trail that goes up. So I did chapter president we did a tour up there. Where that cable goes up, just right on top, it used to be a uranium mine. That needs to be cleaned up. Clean up at net 80 adigi. Adonana kudo working closely with the community of Oljeto, Monument Valley, Bashkaneko, educating our Navajo people. Deep in Yechat, Edo, Dana deep, deep Nanishta, Nanishkan Shad, Nakashinaba, Nanishbata Hatolesh. No Babishkan, she, I get it, or Tilo there. But Kodo at the moment, Kodo, there's an opposing resolution from Oljeto chapter. To put a tram ADG resolution las so the call but Kodo Nagaita Hajo Babishna Hoan Dona Hajo Babishna has now Oljeto chapter officials Club C Adonana community Ashi Hajo Yatsando Koso Tego so it out of Bahate so Ani Hote it'll bring in a lot of revenues for the nation. According Johnny Echo. When you put on top, you can see the whole valley from there. So you can see the center right below you. All the monuments, the mittens, the konas. Mr. Chair, thank you.
Honorable Daniels, Hagi Laho Liatida, Mitchell Mesa.
Visitor Center. You know where the Welcome Center is, yeah, at the junction. You go about 3.5 miles east from there. Look at the Visitor Center, the View Hotel. On the south side, there's a mesa. 80, oh yeah, Mitchell Mesa. So right there on the south side, where'd you go?
Okay, so the tram is going to go from there to Oljeto. That is interesting to have a tram. Part of the fun that people will probably attend. We've thought about it from Hogback Mountain, yeah, to the other hill right there, but it's going to have to include the county of San Juan, New Mexico. That's going to be a very costly project there. So that's good. I'm looking at all the lists, Monument Valley, LCR, the closest is probably San Juan River Development and Shiprock Pinnacle. You guys are very fortunate that you guys have all this Antelope Point, LCR, Monument Valley, Canyon de Chelly. All I have is 2 power plants over there. So, yeah, Honorable Freeland.
Thank you, Chairman. Welcoming our colleagues as they're coming in. I was going to motion to adjourn. Just kidding. Just looking at the list, and I do agree with what Chairman said. You all are fortunate and blessed on the Arizona side. And he said he has 2 power plants. Should have Chaco Canyon, but that's under the jurisdiction of Park Service and others. I know you had, brother, you had make some mention as far as the acquisition of the property up there too. Aisha, would that be a part of Parks and Rec, or would that be hospitality? Goulding's placement. Would that be a part of if we were to get that property, Aisha? Is all that land in that area, is that all trust land, or is there some checkerboard in there as well? You know, Goulding's is, I don't know what Goulding's situation is like, but Aisha, how can we address the land situation as well? Those are just my questions, Chairman, and anything to support, economic development, and of course in that area too. I did have a good talk I've been up there several times to the park. I went up there by myself and spent some time up there, and the tour, Mr. Parrish, you got a very good employee up there, Mr. Parrish, Martin, you probably know who I'm talking about. He took me to the back country. and showed me some back parts. He said that when tourists come and they come in busloads to the park, it leaves a profound effect on them. A lot of them don't want to leave. And he was saying that some of them were even like crying, you know, that's how much an effect that Monument Valley makes to them. And I can understand why. And, you know, I took my family out there, I took my girls out there, and, you know, we spent some time out there, but just understandably how that's done. I have not been to Gump Hill. Maybe next time you can give us a tour up there, brother, to Gump Hill. And then the other thing is factoring in the potential road from El Jato to Navajo Mountain too. That's another thing we need to look at. But those are just my comments, Chairman. Thank you. Brother, on the.
Okay, Honorable Daniels.
Mr. Chair, to Delegate Freeland's question pertaining to Gouldings. Gouldings is located about 2 miles west of Monument Valley Welcome Center, the junction on that side. West, yeah. Goulding sits on a private property, 640 acres. So ADG, we've been having meetings on Goulding's acquisition. So our next meeting is going to be with the president. But at the moment, it's slowly moving along. Appraisal needs to be done. Who's going to run it? Which enterprise is going to run it? So I know there's a land acquisition trust fund. So our next meeting is going to be with the president. ADG, yeah, this is a Gouldings is kind of like away from the tribal park. So thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Daniels. RDC yon nehonetla besh bahasa anan khaatla. So welcome, colleagues. Shanala yon khlihanat khlanden dodetin hodena nare look on tail. Honorable Vince James. And then get your heat, look at your Wheatfields. I know we used to joke about it and tease him about it. So let's introduce our colleagues. Say Ahado Tessa Ando Krobesh Mahasa Anna, Vice Chair Raymond Smith.
Okay, last Che, the RDC members, the Shinai, brother Mark Freeland, Shandada, She, from the great Central Aid Agency. Okay, last Nandada no Senegi, Konaso Tanigi, the colleagues in Osenegi. Okay, last Che. Raymond Smith Jr. the Shichinido, the Nen Schlinige had the better Zindo, Kilichidi, Bushes Chin, Honani, the Shichido, Nakai, the Shinada, they the Cessando, my tour, the other Shia has Lido, the Schlut, the Ajid, Shinan, the Sholodo, the Kintildo, the Todo. That's the my todo Sasan. They would Shinanish Ishido the quite Oisins Ado. And I know Mr. Martin Begato, Kushinachai, but this in that other what Trasatado, he never changes. I don't know if he does himself. He still looks like the day when I came on work in late 1984, and so I think he's got a fountain of youth somewhere.
Maybe that's why he's sitting here with us. Okay, la, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Smith. Honorable Pernell Halona. Go ahead, Chido Beshbana.
Ja, nog goed. Ik heb la. This is als Chirico. Zeg ja, Pernell Holland, ja. Voor in Islam. Als je is zien, dan is het dat je 208 als je nelle. En they 208 als je gewoon. And I represent 5 communities out there: Nashi, Tohatchee, Baspa, Cody Canyon, and Mexican Springs. And thank you for inviting us and welcoming us today. Thank you. Came to see our Senator or Congresswoman Cinema, and hope she comes here quickly so we can get taken care of. Thank you.
You're welcome, Honorable Halona. Aro Chinglido, Nike Kalis Clay Beshbahasa Anado, and his last so, Honorable Eugene So.
Dat het gaat al misschien dat we LOC min bana als tegen op kunnen het zijn nou de alcohol zit weet in leren zijn niet kunnen eens de kwestie aan de change kunnen plan je de negations die gaat krijgen aronda to the chine dat is in de is de how we end from Salana, between Salana and Steamboat. I don't question. They could have more knowledge or the 3 took you. That's something. They are the kids for the chini that's their land. Okay, I should dance, she cotton. Which in Lee should say, it can't on it. Which in Lee development area, keep it. Okay, should say, Neddy, all the Jesus, we should never cut an age just all $3 for she know other we don't quite continue other is in a shop. It's neat, she wants you. Twice it, then that's like you need other electricity that shit. All these ones won't be set down. So I don't put some the air that should not anyway. They said, stay up because I shall learn. Just not I have a card on which I don't people will be other low mountain other cater any other shinala now. So I could all lead on it on the other here.
I hear Kashe corrosion elaborate at nature, the whole Ziluk and Keldo, Honorable Vince James.
Okay, Shanale, Chair. Ado RDC no Tlanigi epic a hate .com a hit one no Tlanigi. Yat that na sana bandini trashet that no ya ian but the crashet that named it the Honsata the Honorable Wilson Stewart. Hadishin iya. Oh, that is a knowledge ian but this car. What a outside late but it's this JR. They the Honsata la. Akoyat adon and Shaniki Twitch insurance at Najini Bashis Chin Kia Ani Dashachedo Hanagani Dashinale Ado Bathata Shagi Kindalachi Gantil Ilcitra Hoye Jedetho Hot out a Benat Ah Slon Konzatish for Jishin Lenko Ado Nana Yaha Kodoya Vince James Tribal Park because so hooky. Aiden had been hitching had this and son yan hitting her yako. But Ella or the sneh or when a dog, God bless you guys. Thank you.
Tina Ishbashna Ishton, Ganado Lake, the house. So, yeah, thank you, colleagues, for being here with us. Mr. Begay from Parks and Rec and Mr. Wheeler, anything you would like to add to the presentation today? Closing statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Although members of the committee, Resource Development Committee. We do appreciate this opportunity to not only present the legislation, but also to apprise you of some of the work that we're doing from Parks and Recreation. And we hope to do something that will promote the growth of the Navajo Nation as relates to natural resources, tribal parks. So I would again say thank you for this time, and hopefully we can get together again in the future.
I would just like to reiterate what Martin has said. For your time and your support on this merger. We really feel that it's for the best for the future of the Navajo Nation Museum.
Thank you. There was a request by Mr. Begay, work session at the Nate. Monument Valley Delta. So, what are recommendations and follow-up? Honorable Mark Freeland, the legislation RDC. So, Honorable Freeland, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman Nania, colleagues, and those who joined us, Nania, who came in and walked out. Mr. Halona, thank you, Mr. Smith and Vince James and everyone. I'm glad we had discussions to this today, and I'm glad we were able to get a little bit more clarity on the situation related to this legislation and the intent. So I really ask my colleagues, RDC and Atlanigi, for your support. I ask for your green vote on Wednesday to this legislation so we can proceed forward on moving these two programs together in a merger like this and put forth some plans and some operations that we can support the museum as well as Parks and Rec together. And then, of course, like you mentioned, Chair, have a separate work session related to the issues related to the tribal parks as well. So, Edia, I just want to ask that and mention that today. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, and thank you, Mr. Wheeler, Ms. Jeff, Mr. Begay, Ms. Arviso, for taking the time to come all the way over here to Twin Arrows to meet with leadership. Certainly appreciate the information that you received. It's always good to be well informed of the work that's going to go forward from our programs. We're here as oversight. We'd like to welcome you anytime to email us, discuss any information that you would like to share with oversight. Thank you. We will have a follow-up work session sometime soon. And the legislation 0053-22 will be put back on the agenda for discussion and most likely approval. So everybody on the call, thank you for calling in. Everybody that's here present, attending, thank you very much. Please be safe out there, and may God bless each and every one of you and your families. We're going to meet with our Senator Sinema here shortly. So Hakoshila will adjourn at this time. It is 1:01 p.m. Arizona time. We'll be back tomorrow for another work session with Law and Order Committee.